Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webinar hosted by AvatarFleet on how to manage recruiting, compliance, and training in the COVID-19 world. With us today, we have Scott.rea, president of AvatarFleet. He's been with Avatar for over 7.5 years now. He's a graduate of Baldwin Wallace University and resides in Cleveland, Ohio. Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you. And I mentioned before, but I'm going to reiterate, if there are any questions, please submit them to the group chat and we will read those out as it goes. Scott has been a resource here with South Carolina Trucking Association for the past several years and has presented originally at one of our safety and maintenance meetings down in Myrtle Beach. So we do enjoy our partnership with him and appreciate him being here today. Scott?
Let's get going. So we're gonna start today with a story about Admiral Stockdale. So if anyone doesn't know the story about Admiral Stockdale, it's a pretty powerful one. So he was an officer in the Navy back in the Vietnam War, and he was captured by the Viet Cong, spent over 6 years in the Hanoi Hilton, tortured over 20 times, and what he made a personal decision that's incredibly impressive, and that was he was going to turn this event into a moment that he wouldn't trade for anything else in the world, meaning a moment that he wouldn't trade. And how can someone make that decision when you're stuck as a prisoner of war for an undetermined amount of time? And the undetermined amount of time is why I bring up this story today. That's the situation that we find ourselves in right now. You know, there's people forecasting, is this going to be a V-shaped recovery, a Nike swoosh? Nobody really knows because we've never been in this scenario before. There's no history to lean on. We've never shut down the economy as long as we did. We've never thrown this much money at the economy from the Fed standpoint, from Congress's standpoint. And so the Stockdale Paradox, why I think it's so relevant right now, is not only do you make this declaration, which I think everyone needs to do, it's how can you make this a defining moment of your life that you wouldn't trade? But here's what's really precedent, and that is that you must confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be, and at the same time, you must retain the faith that you will prevail in the end, regardless of the difficulties. So let's just think about that for a second. You must address the brutal facts, and that is we got to batten down the hatches. So if we're operating as business as normal, that's obviously not the case. There's nothing normal about what's going on right now. But if you go into the fetal position and start sucking your thumb, that's not going to work either. So how do you maintain the faith? So if you can't tell what that picture is, that's the great philosopher on the right-hand side, Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump, saying, "You call this a storm?" And so the appeal here, and this has been the battle cry for our organization, is the Stockdale Paradox. Hey, look, this is tough. You know, brutal facts are we have some clients out there that are hurting right now. You know, we don't know. It may not be anything wrong. Are they going to be in business? You know, to be a client later on. But we're addressing this. We run to the roar of the lion. We say you call this a storm, and we're doing things that are making us stronger. You know, you think you're doing great. You think you're working out, and then you go work out with someone who's an Olympic weightlifter. That's kind of the scenario this is in. Hey, we thought we were in shape. And we just got stress tests over the last 10 weeks. Everyone did. So let's take advantage of this opportunity to make sure that we're in shape and do things that we really should have been doing all along. That's what a recession, that's what a depression is it forces you to get leaner and meaner. We always think we're lean and mean until you get forced to take it to the next level. So we're gonna come back to the Stockdale Paradox. I'll make sure that's part of the notes here. There's a 2-minute, 50-second video by Jim Collins out there on YouTube that's worth everyone's watch. And it's something that we shared with our company when this started. It was the first thing that we leaned on. How do we embrace the brutal facts, confront the brutal facts, and still retain the faith that we will prevail in the end? And so what my team is tired of hearing me say, I beat this drum every day and every week, is focus on what you can control. So we took a look at our client list and we said, who's going to be hurting right now? And how can we help them? How can we keep them rolling at this time? And from that's what we've been up to over the last 10 weeks. And that's the stories I want to share today, is from people that have been absolutely creamed and just taken in the shorts over the last 10 weeks, have got some really great strategies they've taken to adjust And I thought that's what I want to share with you today. They're focusing on what they can control. They can't control that the economy is shut down. And they can do some influencing. You can work with your state association, do some lobbying. But at the end of the day, on the day-to-day standpoint, there's only certain things that you can control right now. And that's what you need to focus on. So this lens today, I can't really help you with your clients. I can't really help you with when the economy is going to turn on. We have not been working on a vaccine here at AvatarFleet. What we're thinking about is driver recruiting, compliance, and training. And so those are the stories I'm going to bring to you today of what we're hearing, some good stuff out there, and what we're doing with some clients. So first things first, let's start with the compliance side. Because just because there's a pandemic happening, FMCSA has not stopped auditing. And in fact, what they call offsite audits or the digital audit, that trend started in 2018. They chose 3 states as beta testers and worked on their portal. And 19, they started really rolling it out here. So take a look there of the number of offsites coming. So this is a trend that had started last year, and you better believe will increase. We're actually seeing some clients of ours that have gone through this already, even the last couple of weeks. They didn't say this. I think it's kind of like the theory of, why you get a ticket at the end of the month because the local department needs a few bucks. Our government's been drawing out checks. I don't know, maybe they need a few extra bucks, but we're seeing an increase. This is kind of more of what we're hearing on the streets. So offsite audits were happening in 2019, and we're only anticipating more of it in 2020 and beyond. Makes sense, right? You can do more audits. You don't have to travel. So you can do more, find more fines, make more money, spend less money on hotels. Why would you not do that if you're FMCSA? So that's kind of trend number 1 that we're seeing. So what do you get prepared for? The first question is, are you digital? And if you're not, if your DQ files are paper, just have a quick moment with yourself and just think that the government beat you on a technology initiative. How does that feel that the government's moving faster than you? If you are, that's a good start. So, what that looks like from my perspective, I picked our system because it's what I got access to. Don't really care what you're using. As long as you've got a way to come in, find Bob Jones, isolate his MVR, his driver's license, his card, whatever it is that you can find it, download it and upload it in the portal. Whether you're in your home office that day, whether you're in the office, but if you're scrambling to go to find some paperwork, that's, you're behind the 8 ball. The other, and he pulls an MVR of a driver that he wants to take a look at. Then he leaves it on his desk. There's a coffee stain on it, and then it gets wrapped around in some insurance paperwork, and out the door it went. And this is a true story. His lady that he in charges to keep track of the files know that she ran that MVR. She had that actually in the records, but Rye keeps coming in, taking him out, and something that she had in place was taken out by a guy who's a little aloof. So those things just happen when you're in the paper world. So do you have the backups to prevent those people to come in to do it? That's just one example of why, but another reason why is what happens if there's a fire? Do you have backups there? So, some folks love the paper. I get it. You can touch it, feel it, taste it. The cloud, where did it go? But the cloud's actually more secure. It's more backup. And then more importantly, it's now easier if you get an audit to happen. You've got it all right there. So if things are a little slow right now for you, what people are doing is taking that time to actually get their scan on, and they're taking all their paper, they're scanning it, and whether it's our system, whether it's Dropbox, whether it's something, they're getting this digital, so they're ready when FMCSA comes knocking at their door. So shifting gears over to the recruiting side. So, this idea actually sparked right as this started breaking out. I know this is the South Carolina Trucking Association. We also have clients in the motor coach space. If you can imagine, now's not a very good time for motor coach guys. I don't know about you. I'm probably not going to mega bus anytime soon. I'm sitting next to people close quarters, and this guy's probably homeless, not smelling great. It's probably where COVID-19 started. So what do you do? How do you do if you're in the motor coach industry right now? Frankly, the governors have said you're not moving. So even if you wanted to, if you had customers, you got no option. So someone in that scenario sparked the idea in my head that he said, Scott, we're going to be building our database because I don't know when this is going to get turned on, but we want to be ready for it. And so, the initial thing is we're not hiring. Let's turn off our now hiring sign. Okay, might turn off the now hiring sign, but let's make sure we're still accepting applications always. So do you have a digital way to collect the applications? That's step one. If you turn them off, turn them back on right now as I'm talking. And when you're working them, and this person who ran this company was saying, what he's doing is just being transparent, saying, yeah, hey, Bob, I'd love to have you on. As you can tell, there's a global pandemic. We're not hiring right now. I don't know when we'll be hiring again. We will be hiring again. I just don't know when. If you want, let's talk. Let's go down the process here, and we'll do an interview. We'll have a couple of dates. We'll make sure you're qualified. And if we have an opening and you're still on the market, we'd love to have you. Here's the thing about recessions, shutdowns. There's a lot of talent hitting the streets. I know folks here for drivers, and this is more of a tech thing. Things that we're looking at is Uber just released a page yesterday that they got laid off. They're trying to do a nice thing and show. We're looking at this as, hey, this is talent we probably couldn't get our hands on. Let's see if we can pick someone up off the street. You should be looking at the same way. There's access to talent out there, drivers that you didn't used to always have. Good people that shouldn't got laid off over the last 10 weeks. Can you take advantage of that? Can you go grab them? And then, we're not running MVRs on these folks. We're not running background screens because we don't know if we're going to bring them on the next 30 days, but we're keeping them on the back burner. It's keep those beans on burn on the stovetop. Just keep them going. And if they're available, when you're available for them, now you've got someone that's qualified and you're already down the runway there. You don't have to start from scratch. So just kind of think about that. Always build the database. And global pandemic or not, just always keep your now accepting application sign on. Let's say you've got a position that you fill. Keep accepting applications. Be transparent with them and say, hey, today it's full, but this is one we frequently hire for. So we want to keep you on the back burner. We'll let you know what's available. And we hope you seem like a great candidate. We'll get a little deeper when there's an opening. And the reason why is when that time comes, as I want you to have your finger on the trigger. And what's the best way to save ad dollars is to not spend them. So any applicant tracking system worth its salt has got maxed. And you need to have your fingers on that trigger because if you're accepting applications, you've categorized them for on hold. You've said, wow, this is a great fit. We just don't have an opening right now. If you're getting really organized, you're driving even deeper. You might say, hey, this person's a hazmat endorsement, or they haul twins, or whatever's relevant to your business. And you've got different jobs at your company. So kind of think about what those jobs are, what are the relevant tags you'd slap on someone, and you can send off a mass text that's designed just for those hazmat folks, just for those folks with twins, just for those folks that want to haul, move dirt, run a dump truck, triaxle, whatever it is that's going to relevant to you, that's going to allow you to give a relevant message. For those who've heard me speak before, I preach a lot about driver personas. When you've got your driver personas down, that's what your tag should match in your database. So I haven't shown a database like this in the presentations. Make those tags line up with those personas so you can send that 2-sentence text that's going to capture their attention. And email is good, send them off, but email things go to die. Text is where you get response rates. And what we see in the driver community is it's not uncommon that that's the wife or girlfriend email that she married, that's the email, and now you lost them. So get that phone number, use that mass text, even flip phone Fred out there, he knows how to text these days. So you can communicate with him and and you've only got 140 characters, right? It's like Twitter. So keep it short, keep it concise. And if you got those tags set up properly and you're really resonating with the driver personas, those 2 sentences is what you've got to capture their attention. If you're sending off a mass text to everyone, you may not resonate with the right person, right? Depends on how many jobs you've got available. If you're only hiring for one job, your life's a lot easier. If you got 5 or 6 flavors of jobs out there, that's where that targeting becomes immensely critical. And so getting your personas is step 1. Step 2 is organizing your database to mirror those. And again, if you notice the theme of this presentation, this is good stuff to do when you're about to turn on your now hiring sign. You should be doing this anyways. Why would you give more of your money to Indeed than you need to? They're an evil empire. Why would you do that? So build your database, You want to get as many people in there as possible, and you use text and email. It's the cheapest way, if not free, to communicate with them. So sliding on to training. So we've got a couple great ideas that I've really heard over the last couple weeks. So let's just start with the content first. Let's please make training that's engaging. There's a lot of bad stuff out there, and it's more check the box. Get them through the sheep dip so we can say we did it. Are we following Stephen Covey's habits? Starting with the end in mind, working our way backwards, and doing it in a format that actually keeps them engaged. And so that's kind of content one. When you look at that training material, when you think about what you make off the shelf and what should be in-house, I think defensive driving is one that there's a lot of good options out there. That's the piece that you should go off the shelf. Go find a provider, whether it's what I've got here on the screen of what we do or someone else. That's what you should do. That's what you should outsource. What I'm seeing that's done really well from what do we do in-house is really starting with the onboarding and the continued education. So let's talk about onboarding first. Again, this is getting pushed by COVID-19, but frankly, I think this is what we should have been doing all along. Let's think about your orientation. Is it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? Whatever it is, the driver's just drinking from a fire hose all day long. It's an 8-hour session where they're going to hear a half hour from payroll, 2 hours from safety, a couple hours with operations. At the end of the day, you just got blasted with information, and you're going to remember like 5% of it. That's why I'm trying to keep this short and sweet, so you actually walk away remembering something. If I throw more at you, you're going to remember less. So if we think about what did that onboarding day or days used to look like, how can we chunk that up? You see what I'm in the home studio today. Flip on the computer, record yourself doing what you used to do, maybe a little PowerPoint here and there. Think about that as the knowledge dump. So when we develop training for our clients, we start with the end in mind. What is this we really want them to know about the payroll system? What's really important? Let's start there. And then we build our curriculum so that they understand that. And then another model that we use is called I do, we do, you do. So first, I'm going to do it. I'm modeling it. That's what's happening right now. I'm just talking, you're listening. Not the most effective way to learn. But we're at least introducing you to some concepts. We do is that you and I together. So you're doing it, and I'm looking over your shoulder. And that's really what orientations tries to do from day one. It skips that I do method. The value of the I do is it gets that information dump ahead of time. So get Betty from payroll, get Ron from safety, and throw them in front of the Zoom meeting and get a half hour in of the knowledge dump and get them to look at that before they show up to your building. The reason why this is effective COVID-19 or not is we got the dump down, and a lot of clients push back on it. They say, well, no, I want to read them this benefits policy. I want to make sure they understand it. If you're sitting there reading the benefits policy, are they really going to comprehend it? Does that sound like a lot of fun, listening to someone read benefits for an hour? I don't want to do that. I don't think you want to do that. So do the knowledge dump ahead of time and then spend 10 minutes recapping. So we have some clients in road construction down south, and they've been, the last couple of weeks, the weather was raining in the winter, and so there wasn't much road construction happening. Well, weather's opened up. They've been bumping. They've been saying economic shutdown. What? I haven't seen that. And so they're hiring like madmen and women right now. But they're trying to reduce, they're in risk management. So I got to balance defensive driving training with trying not to put 20 people in a room at once right now. How do I go about that? So that's where those ideas have come from. So we're spending the time more effectively one-on-one or small group Zoom meetings with those orientation. We do the knowledge dump by ourselves, and then we do the Zoom recap. Next piece here is for continued education. Whether that's for driver certification, whether that's onboarding or continued education. So what we're seeing again is the classroom piece. Our clients have pushed us. Hey, you used to have a classroom course that we would follow along with. Well, we've had to adapt. We threw it on Zoom, and then the behind the wheel, that one-on-one interaction. So the CCC driving that we want to do in our workshop that we want to do in November at the SCTA Safety Council meeting. Well, we're going to adapt based on this model. We're going to do the classroom online, and we're going to do the the one-on-one as a small group, one-on-one, one-on-three. And, who knows what the world looks like in November. I'm not going to speculate or forecast. If we need to wear PPE, personal protection equipment, we'll do it. If we don't, we won't. Someone needs to. We can figure this stuff out. But we're taking it as a case by case. We're using the information we know, and we're just eliminating risk when we can. But this is the balance. Okay, we don't want to have COVID-19 spreading, but we don't want to kill people on the road. You got to make a balance here, right? There's no perfect decision. So how do you keep both going? I got one final piece here that I just thought was really great if you find yourself in this situation. So we've had a couple clients that had to furlough some drivers, and that doesn't feel fun. And some of the drivers, may not feel comfortable on the road, and so that's another reason on the sideline. So one client actually went out. They got the PPP money. They're using that money to bring back all their drivers, and they're putting them through our CCC certification. So they're bringing them back. They're putting good use. They're keeping them off the unemployment line, and they're doing a good use of time. And what's even better that I thought than investing in defensive driver training is any spare time they had, they actually sponsored them to go volunteer in the community. So they had a couple key charities that organization believes in, and they would use that money to invest them as this economy slowly picks up, as those drivers slowly get more comfortable to going back on the road. Then they're working them in, but they've got a really nice structured program there. So that was a really great idea of how can we make the world better and make the road safer. So as I kind of wrap things up here, our theme is don't waste a good pandemic. And what I mean is, if you've noticed all these ideas that I brought and that I heard over the last 10 weeks, these are nothing new. And frankly, these are things, a client once told us, I don't know how I would have hired in a global pandemic without the A suite. Well, she didn't sign up because she knew there was a global pandemic coming. No one knew. She signed up for the efficiency. She had signed up because she wanted to sleep at night when she got knocked on the door from the audit. She wanted to sleep at night because she was tired of getting 4 a.m. wake-up calls for accidents. And she liked the efficiency of recruiting while she sleeps. That's why she signed up. The benefit here is right now during this time, while some of us are working from kitchen offices, is that she didn't miss a beat. And as we talk about how do we mitigate risk from spreading COVID-19, but hey, look, we got a business to run. We're an essential industry. How do we keep running the business? How do we keep running those departments? And so people that were able to pick up their laptops, work from home as needed, they didn't miss a beat. For those folks who are still coming in the office, they're thinking about, and if I'm bringing 20 new drivers in there that I just met, how do I do that in a responsible manner? Because business still needs to run. And so when I say don't waste a good pandemic, I take it back to the story of Admiral Stockdale. So remember, he made that personal declaration that this would be the defining moment of his life, that he would not trade. I don't know if you take it that far, but consider that. Is this a good time? Is there an opportunity here to do things that you should have been doing all along? Our time's slow. Can you get a project in you wouldn't have normally been able to get in? Is this the wake-up call to go, I didn't think orientation could be remote, but maybe some components can. I kind of turned off my now hiring sign when I wasn't hiring, and then I had to start scramble every time that operations said go hire someone, and I felt like I was starting from scratch every time. Take these lessons of what we're learning right now and just apply them to what you do normally. So nothing here is rocket science. It's simply put what best practices are out there that have just been highlighted due to a pretty crazy world we're living in right now. So what we've done for you is summarize all this. So we go back to our training model, right? The I do, we do, you do. This was the I do section. I just preached and went on and provided some ideas. For the kind of you do or the we do section here, if you want to go on your own, we've got some resources for you that we developed over the years, whether it's on the marketing side, creating the driver personas, the template there. On the DQ side, we've got a DQF checklist to make sure everything's in order that you can follow. And some updates on the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. And that was wild, right? That's old news now that we're, here we are in May. And then other pieces of how we're making how you can make safety campaigns for the driver training programs. Again, all this content was produced before COVID-19. Is just as relevant as it was before, if not more. So avatarfleet.com/resources. I'll make this available for Taryn to ship out to all attendees here. And I'll even include a link to the Jim Collins presentation about Admiral Stockdale. I just think it's something that's super relevant right now. I think it's a good thing to share with your team and a good thing for your own mental health and sanity. So without further ado, Ms. Taryn, do we have any questions out there?
I don't see any yet. I did ask everyone to go ahead and submit those questions. You know, when I'm thinking about this, can you give us some really relevant examples of those clients who have done a good job of recruiting during this pandemic? I love the reference to sending out text messages, but are there any other tips and tricks that some of these, because we have a variety of fleet sizes and capabilities.
Sure.
What are some of the marketing or self-promotion from a company perspective that they need to be focused on?
Sure. So going back to the principle here of, what does accepting applications look like? So the from a marketing standpoint, if you are looking to build a database and not spend money on direct advertising, let's start with social. So the way I look at social is think about it as a window into your culture. So a lot of folks out there say, we treat you with respect. We're a family-owned culture, or we're a family-owned business. We treat you like family. There's too many people. The problem with that is it might be true, but if everybody says it, how do you prove it? How do you show that you're different? From a driver standpoint, when I see I'm going to treat you with respect, great pay, great home time, that's like going to the SNL diner where everyone serves cheeseburgers, right? Cheeseburger, 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 cheeseburger. There's no difference on the menu. That's what you're getting that day. You're getting great pay, great home time, great with respect. It doesn't really mean anything. So but there's a lot of good stuff that's happening in your cultures. And so part of when I see folks using Facebook well is they're using that to showcase drivers. They're doing simple stuff. Where are you at Wednesday? Taking a picture of the best sunset that day. There's no monetary value, right? It's just stupid ways to get folks engaged. And some people say that's dumb. Some people jump in, but you're building it. You're building an audience there. The easy one is taking the pictures of the company events, and those aren't happening these days. So what are some other good ideas? Good things I've seen, that I think is really good ways to keep folks engaged from a safety standpoint, was they had their own company safety week. And what they did was they had a little competition. They threw up a picture in Facebook and said, what's wrong with this image? It was like a little Where's Waldo of finding was that it was a flatbed company. There was an issue with the tarp, the way it was set up. So you just comment on what you see, and then they randomly select from the winners or who did correct answers. They threw their names in a boot, and then they gave away that boot. It was like a Wolverine pair of boots, $150, nothing crazy. Well, why that was such a good idea, it was a safety-focused campaign. It was engaging with current drivers. It was driving traffic to their Facebook page. Half of the people that commented didn't work for that company. So she got 50 qualified leads from people that they didn't win the boots. But do that math: 50 divided by 150, what that cost per lead is, and then think about what you're paying on Indeed. Just a brilliant way to generate interest. And so the difference is the mentality, Taryn, that you need to have is when we were recruiting drivers, and that's where I came from. We hired a 23-year-old, and we just sat her in front of Facebook, and we had her go nuts in the direct messenger. And she was our top of the funnel that would get them interested. She knew. Here's the beautiful thing about the 23-year-old: if they don't know the business yet, it's on a direct messenger. And so if she can go, hey, Taryn, how do I answer this question? She had an expert right next to her that could look over her shoulder and help out. And over time, she got good and started to work them. And we turned that into our bench of a future recruiter. So if you've got someone in your organization like that, I hate to say it, but it's almost like, hey, if they're in their 20s or 30s, they're qualified to figure it out. It's that simple. It's more so the attention to detail, the dedicated resources it's going to sit on it. So think about energy you would have spent on the phones or energy you would have spent working with Indeed. Just shift that focus to a more organic standpoint. And for older folks out there, we'll say we got a client that we're working with right now. He's in his 70s and he's rocking out on Facebook. So anyone can do it. I promise.
Awesome. Yeah, I think, between all of the new social media applications that are out there, Facebook seems to kind of spread the generations. And because truck driving isn't solely focused on one specific generation, it seems to be a more flexible platform for recruiting and any aspect: drivers, technicians, customers, etc.
It does. It's also got the eyeballs. So
Yeah.
of all the platforms, it's the place I'd recommend starting, just because it has the most eyeballs out there. And it's a good way for you to, if you're a novice, a good way to kind of stretch your legs. If you're already rocking out on Facebook and you're feeling comfortable, that's when I would start to expand and explore, and you start to look for the value plays. So if you've heard me present before, I use the analogy of Moneyball for our baseball fans out there. If you remember the book of Moneyball or the movie with Brad Pitt, the concept with the A's where they had no money and they're trying to compete with the Yankees. So they go look for how can they reduce their budget is a tenth of what the Yankees have. How can they compete? They go look for they look at different stats. So when I look at different ways, what are the cheaper ways for cost per lead, cost per hire, start to expand, think about YouTube. So why YouTube is so effective, it's the number 2 search engine in the world because Google owns it. Google's 1, YouTube's 2. Video always produces higher than text. So just as a marketing stat, landing pages with video convert at an 80% higher rate than those with just text. We're visual creatures. If anyone noticed, I'd try to put as few amount of words on these slides as possible to tell the story. If I put words, you'd fall asleep. So keeping it visual, that's another reason why YouTube is so important. And then if you were to spend money pay-per-click on Google versus YouTube, YouTube tends to be cheaper. So, and then when we've done digital, spreads before, you start at Google because there's the volume, but thinking about it creatively, there's still people out there that go to the default browser of Yahoo or Bing or whatever. There's significantly less eyeballs there, but the cost per click is significantly lower. So just looking at the world a little differently sometimes you got to pay attention to Facebook because it's so big. And then as you start to get your wheels turning, look at the value plays. And another one there I'd add is Instagram. Facebook owns Instagram. Cost per leads we're seeing are significantly lower. And we're actually rolling out our own digital platform, advertising platform. So what we're doing, Taryn, is we're scraping DMV data, combining with some other public data, and we're creating profiles of drivers, and then we go find them on Facebook. So you're only advertising to people with CDLs on Facebook. Same thing with Instagram. And the value there is, again, we're reducing cost per hire, cost per click, because you're not wasting spend. Think about a billboard or a TV. Billboard, 99% of eyeballs aren't truck drivers or wives of truck drivers or husbands of truck drivers. You're wasting 99% of that ad buy because the value of that billboard is they're basing that value based on how many eyeballs walk past it or drive past it. When you're going digital, you know that your spend is more effective.
That makes total sense. Other than, so you're talking about looking for the value add. So we've got Facebook, you're streamlining who you're actually presenting to. Videos work better than text. And then getting your next step, other than Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, which one?
So Facebook and Instagram are the same network.
Right.
Zuckerberg owns them both. But you look at them differently because they're, again, different cost per hire, different cost per click. So that is the magical, Taryn, how you do, everyone looks for the secret sauce. Like, hey, should I spend money on Indeed or Craigslist or Facebook or what? I can my guts. Here's my experience. Actually, throw wild card, you always start with Craigslist. It is the lowest cost. Everywhere I've seen, 9 times out of 10, it's the lowest cost per hire for everyone. The challenge with Craigslist is the analogy I use is like a sponge in a bucket. You got the sponge in the bucket, and you squeeze it out, and you kind of dip it back in, and eventually all the water goes down. You got to give the bucket time to fill back up. So Craigslist is more of an up and down, because you're posting, and then it kind of slowly drags down, and it goes down, and you post again, and then it slowly drags down, and over time, the same people are seeing it that are searching for jobs. I like Craigslist because it's such a high SEO play. I mean, when you Google truck driving jobs near me, Craigslist and Indeed are always 1 and 2 because they got so many dang links out there. So, but kind of spend it, and then it's cyclical. And then once you you got to be on your metrics though. So once you see those leads starting to dip down, that canary in the coal mine, that's where I would just cut it off, save your money, and then go throw it at Facebook or go respend it. So when we look at it, I don't look at, I'm always going to be spending $5,000 a month on Facebook. I know that I've got different levers that we're constantly pulling and pushing. And what I'm watching like a hawk are, again, cost per hire, cost per lead. I'm looking at the raw numbers to see trends up and down. And then what we're looking at more advanced with our clients is tenure with the organization. So that's that lifetime value of a driver that we're really starting to dive into. And this is me in Dexter's laboratory here. But what the hypothesis is passive candidates, meaning Indeed tends to be job hoppers, people that are searching for a job. Go to Indeed, I want a job. The difference with Facebook is we're not on Facebook jobs, posting jobs. Looking at how they are tweeting that, we hit them with an ad, and they go, "Man, I wasn't looking for a job, but that is a beautiful 30-second video that caught my attention. I am now looking for a job. I'm curious to see what this company has to offer. Let me click on it. Hey, pre-fills my name and phone number. My call to action is very low risk, right? I just with my thumb go submit. I made it that easy, right? This is how we're applying for jobs. Our thumb never leaving the screen. I'm just tapping. So think about how you're making it easy. So that's what I'm looking at right now, Taryn, is the tenure with the organization. Does a passive candidate, meaning a lead from Facebook, who wasn't interested in applying today but was when he saw your ad, is he going to stick around with you longer? And I think that is going to be that is the most exciting thing I got going on in 2020, if anyone cares.
Nice. I think you make a really good point too, and I think we need to stress this to the audience. A lot of people are intimidated by making videos. They think that it has to be Hollywood-esque and that it requires lighting and sound equipment, etc. But today's cell phone technology has really made it more accessible. And I would encourage every one of you to kind of get over your fears of video and utilize what you do have. And I don't know if there are any points on that you'd like to make.
I would agree, and I'll take it one step further, that actually the kind of homey nature of the cell phone video,
right,
the interview with the real driver, that shows some authenticity. The one that's the Hollywood production has people that shows some skeptics out there. So I not only from get over the fear, but I actually think spin that as a positive, and that, if you say you're a family company, that shows a level of it. And so don't be afraid to be kind of homey on it. There's a level there. You don't want to look like the Cub Scouts made it.
Sure.
But there's some level of professionalism that shows, okay, this is a real company. And the professionalism of a real company is stability. And that's a big word to think about for a truck driver. A truck driver is not someone who likes surprises, and which is always thought is ironic how we pay them, because their paychecks go up and down if you're a cents per mile or percentage per person. And someone who just values low risk taking, steady Eddie here has got a paycheck that does this. So when you think about your company, that's why people say we've been in business since 1934. Not a very sexy tagline or things I lead with, but it's a nice show of like, hey, we're not a fly-by-nighter. And that's really what you're trying to say.
Right.
And so when you're making those videos, the homie is good, but show the to a certain level, right? Make sure it's professional.
and you mentioned the whole stability aspect and, what they're bringing home. And I think we need to touch base a little on, from a recruiting standpoint, when you're recruiting, you need to think about their home life. And there have been some who do this really well, where they focus on, bringing in the spouse, understanding like what their needs are. Hey, let's talk about like what you actually need on a weekly basis, or what kind of benefits you need, or what kind of time home do you need, and what can we accommodate and what we can't in the very beginning.
That's a good point, Taryn. So I'll take that twofold. So what can we accommodate, what can we can't, and then engaging the significant others. So actually, let's start with the significant others, because that kind of takes us back to what's a good way to use social. So I've seen good examples are the spouse's Facebook page. There tends to be the wives of or spouses out there. And what they're doing is they're building their own internal community. And the spouse at home tends to be the decision maker. Let's not forget that. And so when Bob comes home all flustered and says, this company, I don't know. When the spouse is at home and says, yeah, but these are my friends. This is where I hang out. I don't want to disrupt. It's like moving. You don't want to move your fifth grader because they've got a network. And so that's kind of the same thing. How can you make yourselves, and we call it sticky. How can you make yourself sticky to that driver? The spouse and the network there is a great way to do about it. That's why the company picnics are great. Make them friends. Do book clubs. Do night, like pick up the dry cleaning. Send a maid over once a month. There are clients that actually pick up the tab for groceries, and that's actually, I've seen that pick up, Taryn, with COVID-19. There's nowhere to eat out there right now for truck drivers on the road. They can't even go to the dang bathroom. So a lot of clients have shut that down. And so thinking about that voice of the driver, what are the current pain points for drivers on the road today? How can you solve them? Those, that grocery thing, the cleaning thing really stuck with me as a great way. They actually started doing this before COVID and just turned it up because the pain point was they got nowhere to eat. So there's a couple examples there. And then on the setting expectation side. So that's one that we've done with clients. Another guy, Brian Feikla, who I've mentioned before in presentations, he's the CEO of Jetco Express. He's on the speaking circuit. Drive to Perfection is his book and topics. And what he's really clear about is a culture contract. That's where he's setting expectations. It's a simple one-pager. There's no lawyers involved. He keeps all the legal documents in these suites so they're signed before the show hand. And that kind of goes with the theme of what we talked about before. You got to have the legalese, get it done ahead of time, and then that Zoom meeting or that face-to-face that's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, make it valuable. And that's that setting expectations. So a lot of times people say, well, I told this driver this is what the job looks like. Well, that was during the dating process. Hey, now this is official. This is right before we get married. Let's make sure as we get married, this is what everyone's agreement is. This is our job. This is what we offer. This is what we expect of you. And the beauty of the culture contract is this is what you can expect of us. Now it's a two-sided document. I think it's really where the magic is, where you've got a document that you sign, the manager, the driver, and it doesn't go collect dust. We bring this up every month, and it's a part of our one-to-ones. So we set expectations ahead of time, and then we check in on it every month. And it can be a quick 10-minute conversation. The value of that is you find the straws that break the camel's back before they break the camel's back. So the little pieces that will build up over time, the driver tends not to bring up until he's gone, and it's too late. And so those regimented check-ins that are deeper than just how you doing, because that doesn't actually get to it. So your structured list of questions that you're going to ask on day 30, on day 60, on day 90, and even spread out those conversations, spread them out through payroll. So payroll's got specific payroll questions. The driver manager's got driver manager questions. The safety's got safety questions. And if any president CEOs out there that have got the huevos to pick up the phone in the first month to say, hey, Howie, thank you for coming on. Taryn, really appreciate it. Welcome to the family. How are we doing for it? Are we meeting your expectations? Is there anything you need from me? Just that single phone call for 5 minutes from the big dog. These just little things that make a driver for life. And so that's what we've been preaching during COVID-19 is how can you make a driver for life? What are the little things you can do? They're going to go a mile, packing the lunch. How much did that cost someone? It's been, okay, it depends on how many drivers you have. But if you just kept them happy for the whole, for a driver for life, what's the cost of that sandwich is worth it.
Right.
The phone call is worth it. So that's what I want to start to push people to think about is, okay, those may be extra expenses when your budget's tight right now and everyone's tightening their belts, but it's more expensive to lose someone and try to backfill.
Yeah. Very valid points. Scott, we did have a question pertaining to what people are doing nowadays for in-person in-vehicle training. And I'll start this off. We did have an OSHA webinar last week, and some of the feedback that we got from it was that they are, restricting jumping from tractor to tractor. So if it's your equipment, that's what you're driving. So there's less sharing, less need to consistently, or constantly clean in between. So far as doing in-vehicle training, a lot of the schools that are still actively training, private schools that are doing so, are requiring masks, wipe downs of just general shared equipment during that time, prior to entering and exiting the vehicle. Those are, like, from an OSHA perspective or best practices on a hygiene. That's what we would suggest. Do you have any other feedback that you've heard for drivers that are coming back after a furlough with some refresher training?
It's kind of more of what you described. And so, while there's a lot of opinions out there, I think what simple things that everyone can agree on is, mass reduce the spread, wiping down the vehicles is best practice. And, I actually saw before this started, the CDC has got a link on their website of how to properly disinfect a truck. So if you think someone has COVID-19, they have got some details there. But in terms of keeping training going, nothing crazy more than what you said or what I haven't already said, Taryn. So, short story, it's because this thing moves fast and information changes. But you think about these principles. So the first is, how can you reduce exposure and still keep the balance of effective training? So that's where I go back to examine your current protocols, your current process. Are there items that could be done online or, spread apart 6 feet away in the classroom? If so, move those conversations that maybe used to be in closer quarters to a different setting. And then it's behind the wheel, in vehicle training, or say a road test. You got to do it. So that's how limiting it, not limiting to one-on-one is, policies I've heard. Folks are, I've actually got a buddy who wasn't in trucking, who was in the mass business, but like a good entrepreneur, his company shifted, and they're now producing mass. So there's a bunch of folks out there. We've got a link if anyone wants to take a look at that. But our clients have been making mask a policy for especially new hires. You don't know where they've been up to over the last 10 weeks, and so just being abundance of caution. It makes one, you don't want your driver out. Makes them feel good, makes you feel good. Seems like the right thing, kind of the easy way to go about it. And then the reducing, swapping vehicles around makes complete sense. Kind of tough for folks that are slip seat operators. I feel bad for our fuel haulers. They're a slip seat operation, and they're getting whacked from the supply and the demand side right now. And so just the efficiency of that of those operations are getting absolutely creamed. But those are kind of what you described, Taryn, are the protocols I'm hearing. Nothing earth shattering. It's just kind of following what CDC recommends.
Yeah, I know that, if people on here, if our guests are getting our emails, we have been sending out CDC recommendations and other things. There's been recommendations from the Technology and Maintenance Council on disinfecting. There's been stuff from DHEC here in South Carolina on disinfecting. It's things are becoming a little more standardized so far as suggestions are concerned, and best practices. The schools themselves are benchmarking and sharing with each other because they do a lot of in-person training behind the wheel, in the cab, on the range. So that's a good resource for us, and we'll try to share some more of that information as well. All right, Scott, I don't see any other questions on here, and is there any, I feel like shamelessly plugging the fact that we have since you have the A-Fleet up there, et cetera, and the Triple LC, we do have our fall management conference still on the books, tentatively scheduled for the weekend, scheduled for the weekend of November 13th. And I will say only tentative, bearing any changes in the COVID-19 pandemic. But we will be doing in-person training at that time, with about a week in advance doing the classroom portion virtually to accommodate anyone who's interested in doing that. So as we get closer, just look forward to getting that information. We really appreciate the resources and the information today. I hope that everyone on here found it thought-provoking and can take some tidbits back to their own organizations and apply them to their benefit. Yep, there is Scott's contact information, and as he said, we'll be sending out some follow-up resources and probably a copy of this presentation at the end of the day. We appreciate you being on here. Stay tuned to our publications and Facebook page. And one more shameless plug, at Truck Proud. If you have any Truck Proud moments while you're out on the road, we encourage you to tag Truck Proud at Truck Proud on either Facebook or Twitter, or send us your videos. You can email them to me at taryn@sctrucking.org, showing off your rigs, what you guys are doing to support your drivers and technicians and dispatchers during this time. Anything you want to share with us, we'll be happy to help promote. We appreciate you being here today, and don't hesitate to follow up with questions later. Thanks. Thank you so much, Scott.
Absolutely. Keep focusing on what you can control.
That's all right.